Hey guys, I'm Richard O'Dale, and welcome to another Mastermind Content Meetup. This week, we're going to continue the discussion around the Divine Child with a focus on a couple of this archetype's key qualities, hope and optimism, because hope and optimism play a significant role in helping you to achieve your goals. So, hope and optimism are qualities that you can cultivate when developing the divine child. So, if you often feel in a state of helplessness or tend to feel pessimistic, then you know the qualities of power and hope are repressed, and your divine child may not be very well developed. So, first of all, let's have a look at the definition of hope and optimism because this plays a role in how we cultivate open optimism. Ideally, open optimism should be something that you feel and believe. Otherwise, it's just wishful thinking and probably not much use to you. So, the definition of hope is basically when we want something to be true. It's the desire to achieve a specific outcome, but accompanied by an expectation or belief that you will achieve the goal that you have set yourself. So hopefully, so sorry. So hope essentially sits on the same spectrum as same spectrum of energy as belief, which you may remember we spoke about last week about how belief is information stored as memory that prompts behaviors, which then ensures beliefs become self-fulfilling prophecies, essentially, which is why limiting beliefs do not help us to get from where we are to where we want to be. As a matter of fact, hope is the antidote to limiting beliefs. So let's have a closer look at hope. Hope fuels goal-directed thinking, which gives you then the motivation to drive you forward. Hope also gives you the conviction that you can manifest potential, you can manifest the potential of the divine child into a lived reality. So let's have a look at the definition of optimism. So when you have optimism, it gives you qualities that enable you to um, continue your quest for achieving your goal despite setbacks and challenges that don't particularly turn out well. Now, optimists generally have the view that challenges are temporary. The reason you have challenges is that by overcoming them, they make you stronger. So, being optimistic shields you from the despair and self-sabotage that you may have when you encounter a challenge or fail a challenge, but it keeps you um, it keeps you willing to learn from your mistakes and to innovate. So open optimism are powerful qualities having your mental kit bag when it comes to shifting from surviving to thriving. And in my opinion, it's difficult to shift from surviving to thriving without these foundational qualities of the divine child because it's normal to encounter challenges in every transition of life. As a matter of fact, in my view, life teaches us how we need to live to overcome the challenges. The challenges are there for a purpose. So if you don't have hope and optimism to fuel your desire and motivation to tackle those challenges head on, then you're more likely to give up. Daniel Goleman says something very similar. He says research constantly shows that hope and optimism are predictors of success. And in his book, Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter, Goleman writes, from the perspective of emotional intelligence, having hope means that one will not give in to overwhelming anxiety, a defeatist attitude, or depression in the face of difficult challenges or setbacks. Indeed, people who are hopeful evidence less depression than others as they maneuver through life in pursuit of their goals, are less anxious in general, and have fewer emotional distresses. So essentially, hope and optimism are predictors of success. And there's been several studies that have shown this. For example, in students, hopeful students set clearer goals, create multiple pathways to reach them, and stay motivated, which generally results in higher grades and graduation rates. In business people, optimism enables them to be persistent after setbacks, such as job rejections or failed projects. And optimism gives them the ability to bounce back faster, which ultimately could mean seeing you secure a better promotion in a better role. Studies have shown this. In the medical field, optimistic patients show better recovery rates after surgery or illness because they adhere more strictly to the treatment plans and maintain healthier lifestyles. Entrepreneurs also are more likely to persevere through failures, pivot effectively, and eventually build successful businesses. Athletes with high hopes maintain positive mindset, which boosts performance when they're under pressure and supports consistent training habits. So basically, optimism and hope builds resilience in the face of failure. Optimistic people interpret failure as temporary, external, and specific, not as a personal flaw. So this makes them more likely to try again, um, get feedback from other people, and try a different approach after that. All the benefits of hope and optimism are that you can have confidence in the actions that you take. So, for example, it increases your belief that you can influence your outcome. And when you have that belief, it fuels the momentum to keep on building. Optimism improves social bonds because hopeful people are more emotionally warmer and solution focused than pessimistic people who can drag your energy down. Optimism has also been shown to activate dopamine. Now, this is a neurochemical which is associated with goal-directed behavior. It helps you to stay focused and energized even when you're faced with an obstacle or challenge. Um, Optimism and hope also engages the prefrontal cortex. Now, this is part of the neocortex, the ruler, which we'll talk about next week. But the prefrontal cortex is required to be stronger than the amygdala, the limbic system or the emotional brain. Otherwise, the emotions can overwhelm you. Whereas when you have a positive outlook, um, the prefrontal cortex can help to calm down the amygdala when the amygdala senses a threat, either a physical threat or a threat to your emotional structure, emotional well-being. So it helps you to lower the stress and or fear or anxiety or brain fog, whatever it is that the challenge that you're facing may be activating in your emotional apparatus. So now we've talked about optimism and hope. It's also worth mentioning the flip side of that, which is hopelessness and pessimism. Again, studies have shown that people who have a sense of hopelessness and pessimism tend to experience more stress responses. And I've talked about this before, that we often recognize stress as an external factor, such as chaotic environments, time pressures, or work pressures, overwhelmed by all these things you've got to do, and you don't know when you're going to have time to do them all. But the stress response al also gets activated when we are triggered by what somebody says if we have an emotional wound. So, stress response is basically the brain's reaction to a perceived threat. Now, if you've got an emotional wound that I am unworthy, I'm not lovable, and somebody says something to you, then you tend to get triggered and you might retreat to survival mode, or you might attack and be defensive. So people who are looking on the pessimistic side of the challenges or the goals that they want to achieve are more likely to feel pressure because they don't have that self-belief that they can actually achieve what they are setting out to achieve. And that's partly because they don't have the emotional apparatus to be able to cope with these stressful environments. Um, Pessimistic people will also experience paralysis after setbacks. It just takes them longer to get back into the saddle and try again. And this attitude basically denies you the opportunity for personal growth and success, especially if you just completely give up. Pessimistic people are often um, indecisive and maybe avoid taking decisions because they have a fear of regret, or they have a fear of failure, which keeps them stuck in this comfort zone. So, for example, you may stay in a job or that you hate, or a relationship that's draining your energy because you believe that you won't be able to find a better replacement, which then leads to more disappointment because you're um, you're staying in an environment that's dragging your energy down, and every day you start hating yourself even more because you don't have the courage to break out from that um, comfort blanket, as it were. You're more inclined to stick than twist. Sometimes you just have to gamble on life and um, work your way towards a better experience of reality than the one that you've got at the minute. Hopelessness can and pessimism can also damage your relationships because people who are pessimistic, they're difficult to be around, aren't they? Your friends, your lovers, your parents, your siblings, they can all leave you with deep emotional wounds which reinforce a sense of hopelessness. But in turn, this can then make you cynical, alienated, disconnected, and um, lost, wandering without a purpose. Or you may be inclined to self-sabotage um, because you've never learned how to create lasting bonds within a relationship. So if you've been around this um, toxic environment where your siblings are always making fun of you or being cynical or alienating you, then they're the learned behaviors that you take into a relationship. And if you're always looking on the downside, then you're no fun to be around, which is obviously going to make, it's going to push the other person away. So it becomes very difficult to make any type of um, friendship or relationship. So the last downside of hopelessness and pessimism is if you have a victim mentality and tend to shift the blame onto other people. So instead of taking responsibility for your own life, you deflect the blame onto something external, either somebody else, a system, fate, the government, genes, whatever it is. Because when you position yourself as a helpless victim, you don't accept any accountability or responsibility for the actions that you take, which then inhibits personal growth, and you can also become codependent on other people. Okay, so that's all for tonight on open optimism. But before I go, I want to recap on the last 3 weeks whilst we've been talking about the divine child. So remember in week one, I explained that the divine child represents potential. The potential that exists in your mind is an idea, a goal, or a desire, or you can feel it as intuition or divine inspiration. I also mentioned that the archetype of the divine child relies on the development of other people to realize, sorry, other archetypes to realize your goals. I think in week two, we spoke about how to develop the divine child. And one of the strategies is to acknowledge your needs, desires, passions, and ambitions. When we acknowledge what we need and we have a clear idea about what we want, then we're more inclined to break away from the bubble of comfort and take appropriate action. And that requires us to take responsibility um, for our actions, make a decisive decision to step out of the comfort zone and do whatever it is you need to do. I don't know if you remember, I had the image, the triangle, the pyramid image of the um, evolution of the personality. So from the divine child, you can either go into the the explorer, the caretaker, hero, everyman, or trickster, depending on which quality you need to adopt next. So I'm giving a talk in a few weeks. So first of all, I'm going to be adopting the explorer archetype. So I want to research about what I want to write. Then I need to learn it. So that'll be the caretaker, get into the habit of learning the script. Then I have to deliver it, which will be the hero having the courage to stand in front of an audience, take the action to deliver the speech. You see what I mean? And that's how you can use the archetypes tool as well. So the objective of the divine child, if you remember, this was week three. We spoke about, I think it was week three, it might have been week two actually. We spoke about spoke about some of the qualities that the divine child will give you. And the ultimate goal of the divine child really is to cultivate inner peace. And some of the attributes that we can use to help find that inner peace is to be carefree, or to accept yourself for who you are, but also accept others for who they are as well. We can also practice gratitude. We should also try to be mindful not to get emotionally involved and react to things that are outside of our control. We can also live in the moment by being present. So listening to the needs of the other person or being playful and reacting, being spontaneous. These are all things that include living in the moment. And finally, the superpower of the divine child is self-belief. This is what we did last week. So we need to identify our limiting beliefs so that we can overcome them. So remember I said that limiting beliefs become self-fulfilling prophecies and they don't serve your best interests. So to overcome limiting beliefs, we need to challenge those beliefs. We need to reframe the beliefs from being negative into some being positive. Um, we also need to imagine in your mind, imagine what success is going to look like for you. What does your future look like? We also need to take action, uh, even when you are afraid of taking action. So you have to act in spite of fear, and then we also have to cultivate hope and optimism. Okay, guys, next week we're going to be moving on to the ruler archetype, and the ruler plays a crucial role in creating the reality that you want by making the decisions to create healthy, positive, and constructive outcomes. We're also going to look at how this archetype is central to helping you create the reality that you want to experience by adopting the type of qualities that you're going to need for specific situations. So I shall look forward to seeing you next week. Goodbye for now. Bye bye. And if you want to know even more about how to use archetypes, then why not join me for weekly meetups on Zoom? For just £45 a month, you can get access to the Archetypes tool together with additional mindset tools for each archetype, plus an overview of the archetype sent directly to your inbox, plus insightful content each week that can help you reach self-awareness and transform your life. But the biggest benefit is the weekly meetups, which give you the opportunity to share your experiences and wisdom. You can tell us what you learned so that the rest of the group learn as well, because your knowledge can help others, and the knowledge of other people can help you. I know a lot, but I don't know everything. So my goal is for us to share these stories and experience, to discuss what we learn and provide advice for everyone who asks for it. So don't be shy to share a challenge if you're facing one, because there'll be somebody in the group that can offer advice that helps you get over that hurdle. Because look, together we're stronger. And with a community that is dedicated to personal growth, success and transformation, I believe more of us will grow faster and easier. So sign up today by clicking the link in the description and head over to the Mastermind Content website. Alternatively, send me a DM to arrange a free 30-minute discovery which will leave you feeling energized and optimistic. I look forward to seeing you soon. I'm Richard Oldale and this is Mastermind Content. Bye bye.